Now we hear from the defense. This is still day 29. The defense calls Brian Loughran to the stand. He says he's lived in Canton all his life. He knows the Albert family. He knew Chris Albert best. He went to elementary and middle school with Chris, and he worked for Chris for 8 years at the pizza place. He also knew Kevin Albert, partly through the pizza place, and he also saw him around as Kevin was a police officer. He also knew Brian Albert through the pizza place. He said he delivered pizzas there, and he said the relationship was cordial, polite, and that he would say hello. All of this is important for the defense to show. They need to show that this witness is friendly with the Alberts. There's no animosity there. The witness has no axe to grind, no motive to fabricate anything. The witness said in January 2022, he worked in the Department of Public Works. He was a regular snowplower for the town of Canton. He does recall January 28th, and he recalls there was a potential blizzard coming, and they'd been given a start time, which meant the expectation was they'd all be in their trucks at a certain time and get out on their routes. A man by the name of William Walsh was the supervisor at that time, and he was the one who would give instructions. The witness said he was told to be into work by 2:30 a.m. on January 29th. This is an important time, 2:30 a.m. He said he arrived at work at about 2:15 a.m. He had to make sure his truck had enough gas in it and that he had everything he needed for the night. He said this truck was specifically assigned to him, and the truck had a nickname, and the nickname was Franken Truck because the truck has more parts on it than are required and parts that aren't made for that truck. He said it's an older truck, and this truck is used for things other than snow plowing as well. The witness says everyday use. So he's at the Department of Public Works at 2:15. He says it takes him about 5 minutes to ensure the truck is ready. He said he plows alone. Yannetti asked him about the visibility from the truck. The witness explained it has an air ride seat, that the seat is raised so he can see over the hood, and about 5 feet on either side, the driver's and the passenger sides. As for lighting on the plow, he says there are marking lights. I think that's what he said. He said there are 2 big plow lights that are on the top of the truck on either corner, way up high. He says it illuminates everything very well. And I would expect that any city or town would ensure good visibility, as this would go to safety and insurance and liability concerns. The witness said the lights are so bright, it's almost like driving around with a spotlight. He said he had the seat raised so high that his knees were almost hitting the steering wheel. Nothing obstructed his view to the front or the sides. They talked about his route. It was Cedar Crest, Kings Road to Chapman, and everything in between, including Fairview. And Fairview would be considered a main road on his route. He said he was on Cedar Crest at about 2:30, 2:35. They put up a map for the jury, and the witness explains his route. He went past Fairview to the cul-de-sac at the end of Cedar Crest, then came back. So Fairview is now on his right. He takes the right onto Fairview, continues to plow, and he says he is familiar with the Albert home. He knew where they lived. He said the first time he passed the house, it would have been on his right. He said at that time, he was plowing the middle of the road. Now, this is consistent with the testimony of other Town of Canton employee witnesses who we've heard from earlier. As he was plowing along there in front of 34 Fairview, he had his lights on, and he was able to see the entire front lawn of 34 Fairview. He said it was about 2:45 a.m. when he passed 34 Fairview. As he continued past, he was able to see a very large portion of the front lawn. He said almost to the front steps. He says when he's plowing, his attention is focused to the front of him and to the sides. The reason he focuses on the sides is that he's trying to be aware of any side traffic, any pedestrians, and I quote, he said, and God forbid any animals. How do you not like a guy like that? Yannetti asked, when you passed at 2:45, what, if anything, did you see in the area of the flagpole? Nice non-leading question here. The witness answered, I saw nothing. This is huge. Huge. 2:45 a.m. John O'Keefe is not out there. And if he's not out there, Karen Reed could not have hit him. He said then he went to the end of Fairview where it intersects with Chapman. He turned left onto Chapman, backed up, and took a left to go back down Fairview. You know, I wonder, was Brian Albert waiting for the plow to pass so that he and his accomplice could then put John out there so it would look like a plow hit him? And this witness is, I don't know how to say it, not sophisticated. Let's put it that way. He's just a guy, just a nice guy kind of doing his job. Oh my gosh. They knew this guy. They knew this witness. They likely knew he was their plow driver. Was that the original plan? To make this man their patsy? This man might have accepted the blame. Maybe he could have been convinced he was to blame. In any case, I don't think he could have defended himself the way Reed has been able to fight back. The witness said after he turned around, he went down Fairview again. So this time, 34 Fairview was on his left. Again, his lights illuminated just about the entire front lawn. So he had a good view from both directions, right? And saw nothing on the front lawn. He finished his route, then returned to Fairview to plow again. And he believes that when he approached again, it was around 3:15 or 3:30. He said he went up Fairview all the way to Cedar Crest and came back down Fairview. He said at that point, he saw a Ford Edge on the side of the road. Wow. It's not often you get an eyewitness to a suspect vehicle and have the window of time narrowed this much. This is great for an investigator. So this vehicle shows up there at around 3:30 in the morning. It's not like seeing a vehicle downtown at noon. And a lot of witnesses are not specific. They'll say things like, oh, a dark truck. But this witness is very specific. Ford Edge. This Ford Edge was parked in front of the Alberts' house by the flagpole. And the witness said he thought this was weird because the Alberts never had cars parked out front. It stuck out to him, he said. At this time, the snow was accumulating more quickly, and vehicles aren't supposed to be there, and procedure is to notify the supervisor, and the supervisor calls police, and if the police can get the owner of the vehicle to move it, it gets moved, but if not, it gets towed. Yannetti asked him, did you comply with the policy? And the witness said, no, I did not. Yannetti asked him why. He said he was trying to be courteous to the Albert family. The witness said he had to go around the vehicle so he didn't hit it. He said the Ford Edge was faced in the same direction as his plow was facing. He had to go around the left of the vehicle. So that's the driver's side. As he was approaching, he was able to see the lawn to the right of the Ford. He did not see anything on the lawn at that point. He continued on down Fairview and turned around just like he did before and came up Fairview again to continue plowing. He said the Ford Edge was still there, and Yannetti asked if he was able to see the front lawn from that vantage point. And the witness said not as much as the first time because the car blocked his view. He thinks he didn't return for maybe hours, but he really couldn't recall, and he couldn't recall a specific time. And this is understandable too. At the beginning of your work shift, you know what time it is because you just started. So it's easier to judge that than it is later in your shift. Anyway, he says maybe about 3 hours, but he really can't remember. He said if he had to say a time, he'd guess around 5:30, but he said he wasn't able to get all the way down Fairview. He said he was seeing first responders. And I'm going to note here, we know that first responders weren't there until a half an hour later at about 6, right? That is no reason to discount this witness testimony, though. It is common for witnesses to get their times wrong. This witness also did say he didn't recall a specific time and that he was guessing. Let's argue this from the other side for a second. Somebody might say, hey, if he's wrong about this time, maybe he's got all of his times wrong. Okay, let's say he's 30 minutes off. He says he passed Fairview at 2:45. Okay, a half an hour before that is 2:15. Well, we already know he was at Public Works at 2:15. But we're playing here, so let's just go with it. The prosecution claimed that Officer O'Keefe was already out there on the ground before 12:36. And they have to have it that way because there is proof that Reed was at O'Keefe's house at 12:36. And she stayed there. So, for the part of this witness testimony that John was not out there, it doesn't matter that if his times are off, John was not there. Any time that he claims that he went by there with his plow after 12:36 and he sees that John's not there, well, the prosecution's case is done. And we know he doesn't start till 2:15. The prosecution's case is done right here, if it wasn't already. If nobody wants to listen to the story that the snow itself was telling, the snow that doesn't care whether you like its story or not, the snow that isn't lying, this witness passed that location at least 4 times from 2 different directions with big lights designed to improve visibility in snowy weather. Let's move on to the Ford Edge. Let's keep going with saying, the witness's times are off. Well, Brian Albert said he was in bed at 2 a.m. Clearly, he wasn't. So what was he doing? Moving his truck there in the middle of the night. Okay, wait, we shouldn't assume it's Brian Albert's truck. Never mind Occam's razor. Is somebody extracting his data? No? Oh, I see. When Reed and Roberts and McCabe got to Fairview in the morning, there was no Ford Edge on the street. Oh, but Jen McCabe made a flurry of phone calls before Reed even got to McCabe's. One of those phone calls was to Julie Albert. I could go on, but the bottom line here is even if this witness's times are off, it still sinks the prosecution. Yannetti moves to February 15th, 2022. The witness agrees he was approached by an investigator about what he'd seen on January 29th. The witness remembers the investigator's name was Paul. Yannetti asked him, "Were you ever approached by anyone in law enforcement?" And Lally keeps objecting. So finally, Yannetti says, "At any point in 2022, were you ever approached by any police investigators?" And the answer was no. Question: when was the first time you were approached by the state police? The witness doesn't recall the actual date, but he knows it was in 2023 sometime. And he knows it was Proctor and Buchanan. He said, I can't pronounce his name. He knows it was those two who spoke with him. On cross, Lally hands the witness plow routes for Canton. They go into how a road is plowed and you clear the middle of the road first. We know all this. And the witness agreed that he'd been driving this same truck, this Franken truck, for about 2 years at that point. And Lally asked him if the witness was driving the same truck in 2015. And the witness says no. And the witness very easily tells him the one in 2015 was an F-150 utility truck. Stick a pin in this on how quickly and how clearly the witness referenced this truck and knew what it was, okay? Well, leading Lally says, similar in size and shape as the truck you were driving that day? The witness says, no. Lally, there's no street lighting near the flagpole for several hundred feet. The witness says, correct. Well, Lally, that would be a good reason for the owner of a Ford Edge to not park there in an unlit spot in the night in inclement weather where his truck might get hit by another vehicle. Aside from that, the lack of street lights doesn't matter with this witness who has these big bright lights on his plow. I want to play you a clip so you get a sense of the witness himself, as well as how this back and forth is going. When Lally refers to Paul, he's referring to the investigator. He's referring to the defense's investigator. Here goes.
And on February 15, 2022, when you had this meeting with Paul, you told him about 3:30 or 4 a.m. Is when you saw this Ford Edge on Cedar Cliffs, correct?
Correct.
Now, in fact, when you first spoke to this individual named Paul, you didn't tell him it was a Ford Edge, correct?
No, told him it was a Ford Edge.
You didn't tell him first that it was a small SUV?
No, told him it was Ford Edge.
Do you remember at any time Paul taking you on the parking lot and showing you different vehicles and asking you if those vehicles matched what vehicle you saw?
No. He wanted to make sure that what I was telling him was accurate. So he showed me what was a Ford Edge, but I had already told him it was a Ford Edge.
So he brought you out to the parking lot at the skating rink that you were meeting at, specifically showed you a Ford Edge and asked you if that was the vehicle.
Correct.
Now, do you know sort of the difference between, if you were to see a Ford Edge at nighttime in a snowstorm, the difference between a Ford Edge and a Jeep Cherokee?
Yes.
What's the difference?
The taillights in the back.
What about it?
Ford Edge is a more round. The whole back facade is a little bit more round. A Jeep Cherokee are more square.
Now, what color was this SUV that you saw?
I can't tell you that. I am colorblind.
Can you tell, I'm just curious, sir, as far as your colorblindness, can you tell whether or not an object is dark or light just by looking at it? Or you can't tell at all?
I can see things that are light. I can see things that are dark. I can see true colors. I can't see shades of true colors.
Lally got into the fact that this witness has issues seeing color. Well, why does Lally care what color this truck was, especially considering nobody flippin' investigated it? It seems the presence of any vehicle, no matter what color it is, any vehicle at that location at that time is suspicious. They know Reed was at One Meadows, so it can't be her. Why is Lally so invested in the color of this truck? The fact that this witness might be colorblind doesn't change that he saw a Ford Edge there and that it was not the defendant. And the big one, John was not out there at 2:30 in the morning. But okay, focus on the witness's ability to perceive grades of color. Okay. Lally pretty much accuses the witness of telling the investigator that the truck was parked right where the body was found. And the witness explains, that's not what I said. He says he told the investigator about the location of the truck and how it was 3 feet to the left of the door. And Lally says, so if he wrote in his report that you told him the vehicle was exactly where the body was found, that would not be true? And the witness says, that would be true. And it's clear the witness does not fully understand what Lally is saying. And he's not understanding what's happening right here. And it makes me mad. This exchange is not about the truth. Lally is exploiting this man's vulnerability for his own ends. Lally asks the witness, how do you know where the body was found? And the witness says, through police reports and police interviews, stuff that was posted in the media. And the witness clarifies to say police on the news, things he saw on the news. Lally drags the poor guy down that special rabbit hole, the one with the funhouse mirrors on the sides all the way down. Not what you observed or knew at the time. Well, this is a distortion. This witness testified to what he said, which is the vehicle was to the left of the door and in front of the flagpole. It was the investigator who wrote right in front of where the body was found. Lally knows this. And it does not change the fact that this witness had a clear, illuminated view of that front yard 4 times. And John O'Keefe was not there hours after Reed left. But let's go after this man who is doing his duty and go after him about the truck. Defend the owner of the truck, because Lally and everyone else knows who that truck likely belongs to. Tell me, Lally, why work so hard over this truck instead of offering evidence that the defendant is guilty? Oh, you can't? I see. Better not whine about citizens not coming forward when there's crime in the community. Better not whine about how nobody wants to testify. Don't whine when you prefer to tear down this man instead of seeking the truth. All right, sorry I ranted. Lally asks him, do you remember in May of 2023, you told people from the By the Yard Landscaping, who is a subcontractor for the town, you told them that you went into work that night at 11:30, and the witness says, I don't remember that. Lally goes at him. You told them you passed Fairview between 12 a.m. and 2 a.m., correct? What the heck? Did somebody from By the Yard Landscaping come and testify to this and I completely missed it one day? The witness is shaking his head. He says, I never did 12. It would be 2:30, 2:45. And Lallygag Lally isn't lollygagging now. He's talking right over the witness. Lally asks him if he remembers telling people he saw the truck at 1:30 or 2 in the morning. And the witness says, I don't remember ever saying that. You know how Lally inserts 37,000 clauses into each question so that by the time he's done his question, your brain feels frizzled? Yeah, he's doing that to this witness too. And Lally went at him again. And the witness reiterates his previous answer. I don't remember saying that. Lally takes another swing, this time trying to trick the witness in a different way. Did you see a vehicle at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning? The witness, I wasn't on the road at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Yay, Citizen Brian. And what the heck, Lally? If the witness had driven by at 1:30 or 2 a.m., it's still after the time you claim John was out there. Oh, but that's not what this is really about, is it? This is about finding any way to discredit this witness, to have the jury throw the baby out with the bathwater so you don't have to deal with your real problem. Evidence. Lally, question. Do you recall telling people cruisers were blocking off Fairview at 3 in the morning? Witness, that would be incorrect. Question. Do you recall saying that? Answer. I do not. Does it occur to Lally that maybe those other people are wrong? Oh, wait, sorry. That's the point. This witness account matches with other verifiable facts. And that's exactly why it must be crushed. Right is wrong and wrong is right. Lally hands him a document and asks if that refreshes his memory about saying those things. And the witness says, no, it does not. Well, that should be it. But no, Lally keeps going. Lally states for the jury what he wants the jury to hear. And the witness sticks to his guns. He is clear about what time he came in and what he saw. He's clear he wasn't even on the road at 1:30. Lally keeps hammering. The defense objects, but Lally just keeps going. Lally asks, are you sure you didn't see a Lexus SUV at around 5 a.m.? The witness says no. You see this? Let's mangle this witness statement to make it fit with the narrative. Never mind, there's still the problem that this witness saw that John was not out there after Karen left. And as Lally keeps going at him, it seems less clear. We knew from his direct examination that he wasn't really sure about the end times at the end of his story, whether he was driving down Fairview at maybe it was 5:30. He's not sure, but he is sure about the beginning portions. He's not sure about that last time he drove down there. And so that's where Lally goes. And as it goes on, it seems more and more confusing, and it just looks really chaotic, or it could look really chaotic, and it could look bad, and it could be a really strong redirect away from the fact that John O'Keefe was not out there at 2:30 in the morning. The witness was asked about August 2023 when he spoke with troopers. At that time, he'd been asked about another street on that route and about how he hit a basketball net, and he called it in. And the witness said he does recall hitting a basketball net, and he knows he called it in, but he can't recall what time it was. And Lally suggested to him, well, you hit the basketball net because you didn't see it. And the witness said no. He was trying to go around it, and he miscalculated because the parts on the Franken truck were parts that didn't really go with that truck, and there was a new piece on there, and he miscalculated that he needed to go a little wider. So Lally ended with, oh, so it's safe to say you misjudged the distance? If Lally is trying to imply here that this witness is misjudging the distance in respect to what his range of visibility was, it doesn't really matter, because when the witness described how much of 34 Fairview he could see, he didn't describe it in feet. The way he described it was almost up to the front door. So he doesn't need to judge the distance there, does he? Yannetti got up just to clarify something, because Lally had asked the witness, are you sure you didn't see a Lexus SUV at around 5 a.m.? And the witness had said no. And Yannetti wanted to know, no, you're not sure? Or no, you didn't see an SUV? And the witness clarified, he didn't see an SUV. He's sure. So that was it for the snowplow driver. I thought he did a great job. And kudos to him for doing the right thing. That's all I've got for you for now. Trust your gut. I'll see you in the comments.